Evening, everybody. Welcome to the September 16th, 2025 Board of Police Commissioners meeting. I called the meeting to order and ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would make a motion to suspend the agenda to move items number 1 and 2 under the chief's report, that is relating to the item 1, the FY27 budget process presentation by Deputy City Manager Nathan Looney, and item number 2, the K9 unit presentation by Master Patrolman Bill Werner.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Deputy City Manager and City Manager, we welcome you. Thank you so much for coming tonight to give us a little presentation on the fiscal year 27 budget process. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to not only address you, but to address you early. We appreciate that. So as we heard, and I'll speak for Nathan and myself, as we heard through the budget process for the fiscal year we're now in, we heard from all the charter departments, most notably that it would be great to be included earlier in the conversation for a host of reasons, and we welcome that opportunity. So as such, we have just five slides total. I think the last one is a question and answer slide. So we're not here with anything real heavy. We're here to really start the dialogue. Thank you, Nathan. We want to start earlier. We welcome all communication. We want you to understand what we're dealing with and vice versa as early as possible so that we can all make better decisions together. This will allow for more time to complete the work and to deal with some of the challenges that we may face. And it's really in an effort to foster collaboration as we move forward. We have gone to the Fire Commission last week. We're here tonight. Thank you. And we'll be with the school board in 2 weeks at their next meeting. Next slide, Nathan. Nathan's up.
I want to share with you just a little bit about the landscape, the budget landscape within which we contemplate FY27. I would remind you that the traditional economic measurements that we look at aren't available to us yet. So what I've tried to do is just remind us where we've come from and give a sense of the prognostication right now about where we're headed. So the Social Security COLA that we see annually, we've looked at that in January of 25. That number was 2.5%. The market is talking about anywhere between 2.5 and 2.7 right now. I've shared that. I can tell you that we'll get the 26 figure on October 15th. We have utilized annually the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. In November of last year, the CPI drove a 3.09% increase. I've taken a real straight line, very conservative approach and said it looks like it could be 2.9. It could also be 3.2. Right now, it depends on how you want to trend this and how you want to calculate it. But for giggles, I've used 2.91 just as a placeholder, which is a simple straight line trend over the releases so far in 2025. But that number is due out the November release on the 11th of December. And so the 10-year rolling average of CPI that we use locally to drive lots of our decision making, that was 2.84 in this last session. By the 15th, we'll take and do the calculation and provide that. Right now, I can tell you that anything 2.5 or higher on the CPI will drive us to a COLA here that's 3% or more. If it were 2.9, it would look like 3.05 roughly. So I offer those things up just as a placeholder, if you will, for the economic conditions. I also want to report to you that our revenue streams continue to stay strong across the city. We saw fairly even revenue projections from FY25 to 26, but as we march through 26, those continue to be strong and always seem to be moving in a slight increase year over year. I'll also remind you that property development in the community continues to drive and make a difference. As you calculate tax impact each year, the value of properties is important. The addition of new property value to that total evaluation is also important in spreading the costs of our municipal services. So the second item that we wanted to add to a review of where we're at is just to share with you a snapshot of the timeline that you can expect for this year's budget cycle. So the first element of the budget is the CIP every year, the Capital Improvement Plan. That has been launched. We launched that this summer. The citizen portal is open and continuing to accept requests from residents. The deadline for that, I would remind everyone, is this Friday. Our departments have been launched into the CIP. Their department submissions for capital improvement needs will be next Friday. And what follows in October will be the continued progression of our budget process, looking at staffing needs for consideration as the first big step in the budget itself. Rolling stock, our inventory of vehicles and the like will be considered in October. As we march to November, the full presentation of the CIP will be before the community. We'll have a shared conversation with both the City Council and the Planning Board. We will also know in the November timeframe a target rate of increase for all of our related employee benefits, the workers' comp and unemployment and such, health and dental, the bigger one, health. We should have those numbers by the time we launch through November. And so in December, the department needs will be submitted to us. We will have an adopted CIP. The CIP year one numbers become the foundation for the initial budget request that we'll put forward to the council. In January, the departments will be working to compile their narratives to describe their budget expectations and needs for the coming year. We'll have the departments enter numbers into the accounting system so that we have the stuff, the material, the non-salary stuff to add to the salary stuff we're working on this fall. And hopefully in January, we will have a council seated and we'll get guidance about where they'd like to see that budget come. In February, we hope to reconcile that city council guidance against the numbers we've already compiled and put together. Proposed numbers we hope we can finalize by the end of February so that March can be the month in which we actually compile that beautiful glossy book that you see on an annual basis. That's the timeline basically, and as the city manager had suggested, we wanted to get out in front of you early to talk to you about that timeline to make sure that you could identify opportunities that might fit to contribute and participate in the process.
And then our last slide before we would be happy to take questions is a way to set expectations. So what we will ask all departments, including the charter departments, is to compile in one set of documents what we're calling a continuing services budget. That's just to be able to do what you're doing now. That would include level staffing, that would include impacts from any of the collective bargaining agreements, that would include steps, longevity, stipends, that would include any contingencies for those groups that are up for bargaining. We have 5 of our unions up this year. And any contractual increases you know about for non-salary items. There are some that will fall specifically to the police in that realm. For those things that fall outside of a continuing services budget that would be new to the budget and therefore raise it beyond, a floor of 3 if we're just honoring COLA, would be things we'd ask for in a second set of materials to understand what else the departments would like to accomplish or take on or may need to take on. And then by doing that, we'd have to, once we assimilate some guidance from the new sitting city council, how do you prioritize those? If what the police is proposing goes well above the guidance that is set, and we know out of the gate that COLA and other contractual increases will be in the 3% range, what things would you like and in what order? So trying to compare apples to apples. Everybody on a continuing services budget, things people want to add, and there will be a new way to outline a request for new staffing or services. It's hard to say what the new council will seek in terms of, or offer in terms of a guidance, but this is the best information as we know it today, and we're sharing it equitably among all departments. Just a note, we will speak to all department heads next Wednesday and share these same slides and talk about these same expectations, so you're all hearing the same thing. I think that's it, right?
That's it.
Right, so we would welcome either tonight and or on a standing basis your feedback, any questions, any comments. This doesn't have to be the only time we attend a commission meeting.
Thank you. Commissioner Scher?
I have a couple questions related to the process last year. Well into the budget process, the police department, a charter department, the message seemed to be conveyed to them that the police budget, the city council was looking for no more than a 4% increase. And then at relative last minute in terms of our duties as a police commission, that at least for the police charter department, that turned into 2.7, which was different than other departments. I think that was difficult. It resulted in the police department not having control over what got us from 4% to 2.7% because that information that started out at 4% changed in a dramatic way, particularly unique to the police department. Are we going to be able to get a solid figure of what the city council is pointing toward for each of the charter departments?
Let me take a stab and then you can jump in. If I recall correctly, initially it was between, I'll say 3.5 and 4.5, and then there was a discussion of 2.9%. But if everyone came in at 2.9% with different percentages of the pie, we would be over that percentage, if you will. So some departments had to come in at a minus percentage compared to the previous year to make up for some of the groups that went over. Good example, school department. So I don't know how to answer your question other than that to say the number that is submitted and discussed in February at the police commission hearing may or may not hold depending on how the other departments come in relative to the overall guidance and increase. But Nathan, do you have a...
Yeah, I think the only other thing that I would share would be to suggest if guidance, we're out early trying to talk about the process and involve folks in a conversation. I appreciate the questions and would suggest if the council doesn't have the opportunity to generate guidance for us until the end of January, the 1st of February, it will necessitate that we be ready then to make serious decisions about how we meet that guidance, which is why the best we can do right now is share that if the economy is moving at about 3, then 6% is probably not a reasonable expectation for any of the departments. And if they are at 4 or 4.2 and the council guidance is something in the 3s, that will be communicated as immediately as possible, but we can start now doing the homework so we're ready to confront those decisions when they come. That empowers the commission to have done the work to be ready to make those decisions. The
problem last year was at the end of January, February, the number we got was 4%. And that changed late in the process to 2.7. And what that resulted in, and it relates to my second question, is new to me, having been on at that point, the police commission for 3 years. The city manager submitted a competing police department budget, which was a surprise to me. And we really had no discussion effectively with the city manager before that budget was submitted to the city council. I don't know what the dynamics were between the city council and the city manager, but that last minute provision of a competing budget was disturbing. It took out of the hands of a charter department that which is their responsibility, and that I found that very troubling.
I think if I could offer a response to that, we're here early. I think the fact that Chief Newport and Deputy Chief Maloney and Nathan and I could start to understand some of the cost centers with your budget, we could better advocate for the things that may fall beyond the guidance that is given to all departments. So that's the best answer I can give, that we could work more closely starting earlier.
I would just to finish, I would encourage the city manager's office and the finance department to, if they want to have discussions, if they want to have problems with that which the charter department, the police commission, and the police department have submitted, to have discussions early about that. That didn't occur last year, and that was very difficult for the department.
Commissioner Giffen.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Commissioner Buzz-Scher on his last comments. I want to be made clear on the fact that you talked about if another department comes in over budget, you're going to look for another department to take care of their overage? did I misunderstand that? Could you explain that to me, please?
When the guidance was to come in at a certain percentage, it inevitably means some departments will have varying degrees of a percentage increase, or in some cases, two of the departments had a percentage decrease, the Recreation Department and the Library Department. And those were put in place to offset some of the increases that we had either no control over, or there were policy decisions to fund some things over other things. So I will be, and Nathan will be, as communicative and collaborative as possible. What we'll need to do is convey what the guidance is and how we hope to achieve it in totality. We'll be as transparent as we can be. We'll come to every police commission starting in February, if that makes sense, to give you updates.
I do, and I understand that, and I thank you, but, so you come to us, or either with the guidance from the city council or your office, that we're going to have keep it to, what was it, 4%, the increase. So we keep it to 4%, and then they come back and say, well, we need 2.7 or whatever it was, and we like juggle everything real quick. Is, if you come across theoretically 2026 and they say, okay, everyone's going to have a 2% increase, that's it, you got to stick to it. And then somebody comes in with a 3% increase, shouldn't everyone kind of be equal across the board with their increase? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. In theory, yes, but some groups will have different contractual obligations than others. So what we found over the different departments is how do we get to that total increase and keep it below a certain number? Do you want to add anything?
I think, I just would offer up conceptually that there is one budget, not four budgets, not my budget, his budget, her budget. We have to generate and submit one budget to the council that will, city manager's budget that will be discussed and determined ultimately by the council. And so we do everything we can and want to this cycle be as much available as we possibly can for communication and sharing of information. We will know, as you will know, when the council sits right there and makes that decision in January, February, whenever they issue their guidance, and then we'll have to work quickly to try to address it as best we can. But we have to chase competing priorities and find balance to achieve a budget that will provide for all of these departments. So I guess the best I can continue to say is that's why we're here. Wanted to make sure we gave you the same information that we're working with, so that, and we will continue to do that, so that you're as prepared as we are to deal with the challenges that come.
I appreciate your offer to be communicative and collaborative, and I think that's really important. And I hope it doesn't turn into last year where we lost 3 budgeted positions from the prior year without any substantial conversation with the police department or the police commission before that was put forward to the city council. And I just don't want that to happen again this year. That, we are a charter department, and the way things read, you don't get, the city manager doesn't get to say, here's what I'm going to do with the police budget. That should be a collaborative process, and I know the chief and the commissioner are very willing to be collaborative, but when we're told you're going to cut 3 people from the budget, 3 lines from the budget without any discussion with the police department and the commission of better ways to get to that 2.7%, that's what bothered us last year, just to make clear.
We were getting direct guidance from the council that they were seeking the unfunding, not the elimination of the positions, but the unfunding of the positions, and that's the action we took. I would say that going forward this year will be a very different conversation. I think we're starting with an open book, and Mark and Mike will know what we're working with, and I know what they'll come in with is, if nothing changes, here's what 27 is going to look like. If we have the ability to add, if we can't add, what would we consider doing without or less of? That's the way the conversation is going to go.
And I think,
Thank you for that.
yes, and thank you. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for starting the process early. We welcome that. I think, obviously all of our concerns here are not so much this point, but like at the, when the goalpost shifts at the, sort of at the 11th hour. But I think that we've all learned from last year, and hopeful that this year will be a different process, and starting it early and having you guys come here is a great part of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
That's our
Thank
goal.
you.
Thank you. Night.
Okay. Moving on, we'll move to item number 3, acceptance of the minutes for July 15th and the August 19th meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
The K-9 presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I rushed, and first we have our K-9 presentation. Thank you, Chief, for keeping us on task. Officer Warner?
Thank you so much. Thanks for giving us the time to come here. Speaking for the police department, we are super excited about being able to come here and present to you about some of the teams and units we have here, just to shed some light on all the things that we do. And the very first bit of information that I hope you learn is that as a canine handler, I would never miss an opportunity to talk about my dog. So thank you for giving me this. So the police department's canine unit, it's one of the oldest in the state, as a matter of fact, founded in 1985. So we love what we do, and being able to bring some of that information to all of you is very exciting. So these two animals here are, in fact, your Portsmouth Police Canine Unit. So the light brown individual right here, that's Crash. He's a 2-year-old Belgian Malinois. His name fits his personality. Fantastic at his job, but he will inevitably break something in the course of his duty. And then the dark, more sophisticated looking individual is Frankie. I happen to be his dad, so I'm partial. Frankie's a 7-year-old Belgian Malinois. Both of these dogs are what we would call dual purpose, meaning they have 2 separate areas that they've been trained in. And these 2 animals represent the highest trained members of the Portsmouth Police Department. And I'm going to show you that right now. So in order for these dogs to become trained, they have to go through multiple schools. So each dog has a patrol certification. So that's all things human odor. Those schools are done through the Boston Police Canine Training Group. So for 16 weeks, we drive back and forth to Boston to go through everything that they could throw at us. The patrol certification is all human odor, all things human odor. So from tracking and article searches, so if somebody touches something and then tries to get rid of it, the dogs can find it. Like if you're playing fetch on the high school football field and you drop your cruiser keys. Good thing Frankie knows how to find articles, because I'd still be stuck out there right now. Article searches to building searches to obedience and apprehension, which is where the dogs are in fact trained to help their handlers take somebody into custody who doesn't want to be taken into custody. Then there's secondary certifications. So Crash has a secondary certification in narcotics. That's an 8-week school. And Frankie has a certification in explosive ordnance detection. That's another 12-week school. So combine those two, already each of these dogs have been through more training than any of our human officers. On top of that, to keep those certifications, they have to go through 2 formal 8-hour training days a month down in Boston. And then not to mention their daily training that we have to do with them. These dogs are not like your dogs at home. That's why he's not here with me, right? He's not necessarily the petting type. Loves me, doesn't really care about anybody else. A little bit more about this idea of single purpose versus dual purpose dogs. This comes up often, and it really comes down to a matter of resources. So we have dual purpose dogs, right? Those are the multi-tool of patrol. We train them so that we can use them in as many types of calls and applications as possible. With only 2 dogs here in Portsmouth, we need them to be able to do as much as possible when they show up. Each of these animals go to hundreds of calls a year. Frankie has been averaging anywhere between 110 to 130 calls a year. Crash, again, he's only been in service now for a little over a year. He's right there too. His last calendar year was right in that window also. So tons of calls these dogs are going on. Single-purpose dogs are also available, and we have some of them throughout the state. These are dogs that only have one focused area of training. So for instance, your search and rescue dog, right? Or if you go to the airport, you have your single-purpose narcotic or bomb dog, maybe a little beagle that's sniffing your suitcase as you're waiting in line. That's your single-purpose dog. They're only looking for one thing. Fantastic resource. Here in Portsmouth, we've made our bread and butter out of dual-purpose dogs because, again, we use them in so many different applications. And only having 2 dogs, we have a limited number of resources, so we need them to do the maximum amount of stuff. We actually took it upon ourselves to do a little research project within the unit. we tried to go back 5 years to look at all the different calls where a single-purpose dog would be used. So we had to go through all the different call types, and we came up with thousands of calls that could potentially fit, and there was only single-digit numbers where we would use a single-purpose dog. So again, we're maximizing the amount of calls that we can use our animals for. So just to prove how effective they are, right, there was a study done, you can see by the University of Pennsylvania along with the Pennsylvania Veterinary Association. And so we had to try to figure out resources available versus man hours that they save, right? That's what it always comes down to, the mighty dollar, doesn't it? We, as a police department all across the country, PDs are struggling with the same thing, right? This balancing act of how much time do you put toward a call so that you can be thorough and complete in your investigation, while also not spending so much time that now other calls are waiting for you to get to. So it always comes down to this idea of man hours. So this experiment was conducted out in the rural Pennsylvania fields and woods. So the general idea was they had a land area that was 3.5 square miles, which, for point of reference, if City Hall was the middle of that 3.5 square miles, it would go out to the Piscataqua, cover the majority of the downtown, the majority of the south end, and out to part of the west end. So just general idea. They gave the different resources a time hack. You only had 3.5 hours, and you had to find one individual that they hid in that 3.5 hour square. The benchmark that they were looking for was 70% success rate. Okay? And then there are your contenders, right? So you have the furry ones, just regular old humans, and helicopters. Right? After they ran the simulation multiple times, this is what they came back with. So you can get to that 70% with using just humans. You would need 88 cops in the 3.5 hours. Helicopters, one helicopter was actually 40% successful. Here in Portsmouth, we have a drone unit. They'd be able to speak to that more, but just something as simple as the cover from trees is going to impede their view. So helicopters were difficult. 3 furry dogs, 70% success rate. Right? So we ask them to use their greatest sense, their nose, and they do it quite well, and they love to do it, and they find exactly what we're asking them to look for. So here's just a basic year in review for your canine unit. This is what we're doing year in and year out. We have prided ourselves here in Portsmouth on putting this city on the map as far as a region and canine goes. So we wrote our own curriculum for integrating dogs into tactical teams. Both of these dogs are on the Seacoast Emergency Response Team. We'll talk about that a little more in a second. So we wrote our own curriculum as to how to get the dogs used to working with operators on a tactical team. The curriculum was so successful that we've been requested by name to travel around New England to present that curriculum. Just a couple of months ago, the other canine handler, Jack Maloney, and myself, we drove all the way out to Western Massachusetts. We could spit and hit New York to bring that curriculum to their sheriff's department, both their canine unit and their tactical team. So now Portsmouth Canine is known in New England for what we do. We also conduct canine medical classes. We're a part of an organization called New Hampshire Operational Canine that provides medical classes for canine first aid. Again, traveling all around the state doing that. Tons of exercises, bomb sweeps. Frankie has spent the last 3 years working the finish line of the Boston Marathon. I don't think he really cares to find bombs, and I'm glad that he doesn't find them all too often. Demos, this is, again, one of the things that we pride ourselves as far as a unit goes, the community policing aspect of what we do. We will never say no to doing a demo. Probably just about everybody in Portsmouth has seen us at Cops for Kids, Touch a Truck. Actually, I think you and I spoke in the parking lot of Little Harbor, right, this past year. Not to mention just impromptu demos that we do in the downtown, out on the street when people want to know about the dogs. Everybody loves the dogs. Nobody really cares about me as the cop. I'm just the chauffeur for the furry one. We just worked the air show, and then, of course, we also take care of the bomb sweeps, all the parades, and all the major events here in the city. And that's just a small group of, some of the larger events that we take care of each year. Of course, if you're a fan of social media, I welcome you to follow the Canine Instagram page. We're always looking to up that's where we put a ton of our information out there. So all this GWiz information that we're bringing here today, a lot of that goes up there too. So again, what does it look like to have a working dog and what things are they doing? So this is just a typical year for Canine Frankie. So this is calendar year 24, right? We haven't compiled all of our stats for 25 yet, but you can see these are the calls that he's going on. Credited with 8 arrests, 95 different patrol deployments, 32 detection deployments, right? And you can see by day, these animals are busy, right? This means that they're on call. We're on call at home if they need a dog for Portsmouth. We're also now becoming more of a regional team where if they need a dog for any of the surrounding towns, we go there. Frankie was just in the news about a pursuit that started in Hampton and ended in Kittery. Right? And that's, again, there aren't as many canine assets in this area as we would want. So that means people turn to Portsmouth. Also, the interesting part here is all the requesting agencies, right? This is what we were just talking about. Some of them are locally, some of them are federal, to include the Secret Service, right? Frankie has had to assist in some of the campaign visits that happen here. So again, Portsmouth has put ourselves in a really nice spot that people know us and they reach out looking for help. Both animals were chosen specifically for their temperament because we knew that they were going to be on our Seacoast emergency response team. So both of these dogs have now become integral in that team, and they are used in just about every call that we go on. They need to be able to work around people in very close proximity. You can see, right, even including hanging off the back of the Bearcat as we're going to a call. You're going to see a video here in a second that's a training scenario, but it's a way that we incorporate the dogs. The beauty of these animals is that they allow us to be the last mammal to go into a dangerous space, right? The reality is that we ask these animals to go first into the most dangerous of situations because of their ability to locate things, but it also means that humans get to remain safe. Again, this is just a training scenario, how we would use them in certain calls. So you got the bad guy, dog gets to come in first, and now the humans come in. So again, when we ran this, that individual is actually a SEER instructor. So he instructs all special operations guys, and we didn't tell him that we were going to do it. Of course, he's holding a bite sleeve, so it doesn't take too much to figure out what's going to happen. But our big question to him was, did you see the good guys come into the room? And the answer was obviously no. Their ability to de-escalate is probably their strongest attribute, right? It's in our genetics, right? Thanks to our ancestors of thousands of years ago. We don't want to have our body parts in the mouth of an animal. So their ability to de-escalate situations is second to none. And I mean, these are just some examples within the last year of calls that they've been on that we have proof that it was the dog that changed people's point of view. You know, so we talk about burglary, right? And somebody doesn't want to come out to announcements, and they actually called out through the window as I was trying to talk to them, "Are you going to send the dog in?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Okay, hold on, I'm coming out." And they promptly did. You see a high-risk arrest warrant, right? We had just arrested this individual a few weeks prior, and he fought with us. It took 4 cops to arrest him. We show up for this high-risk arrest warrant. Frankie didn't even get out of the car. He was just barking from inside the car, and you could see that's a direct quote from that individual once he was in handcuffs. "I always try to fight the police, but I want no part of the dog." Nobody does. The honorable mention, of course, is sometimes we fake the warning about the dog. So we had to arrest somebody, and we said, "If you don't come downstairs, we're going to send the dog up." Well, there was no dog on scene. Good thing that when we went back the second time, we made the same warning, and when he looked, there was a dog there the second time, or he would have called our bluff for sure. This is really a stat that I wish I could compile for you, but I can't. That ability to de-escalate the situation is our bread and butter, right? It's one of the reasons why we show up to as many calls as we do. Being able to de-escalate a situation means that police officers don't have to put their hands on people who don't want to be taken into custody. That means suspects are not hurt. That means cops don't get hurt. It's good for everybody. And this stat, right, of how many times has a dog shown up on scene, and that is what has changed the attitude or intentions of people, I simply can't quantify for you. I wish I could, because we know for a fact that dogs change things for people. So again, super powerful tool for us on the street, in the patrol division. If the dog shows up, he's going to get out of the car, and even if he's just standing off to the side, we know that it impacts the overall outcome of the call. Portsmouth's K-9 unit had made it their goal not too long ago to change the K-9 outlook here in this area, and if we could do in the country, then we would. And we were able to do that for at least the state for right now, where back in 2023, we were a part of writing and then ultimately having passed state law. So we passed Max's law, which is part of RSA 153, which is all the EMS legislation for the state. Max's law stems from one of our Portsmouth dogs, K9 Max, that died in a training accident due to injuries that he sustained while he was at training. Up until 2023, New Hampshire and many other states across the country said that there's no law or legislation put in place that would allow for any type of medical treatment, pre-hospital medical treatment for canines, which we didn't like. Because again, we're asking these dogs to go into the most dangerous situations, and then they get hurt inevitably, and then we offered no solution to try to help them other than put them in the back of a police car and let their dad drive like a madman to get them to the nearest vet, which didn't work, right? It wasn't a safe thing to do, and it certainly wasn't in the best interest of the dog. So again, in 2022 and then into 2023, we set off trying to write this law. The first version of the law came out of Portsmouth Police Department with the help of then Police Commissioner Stephanie Shaheen. Right? She put us in contact with some people in the State House, and that got that ball rolling. And then in 2023, the law was signed. From there, we then created a company, New Hampshire Operational K-9, because what we found was that the state made this a prerequisite course, meaning that for any paramedic to treat a dog, they have to go through an appropriate course, which means we had to create a curriculum, which had to get approved by the state, which we did. So now we offer this course all around the state. The next one's coming up in October over in Hudson, New Hampshire. We've even gone so far as to create different ways to get this canine information to EMS. To include, we created that QR code, which now handlers can log in and put all of their dog's vitals, basic vitals in. So, and then we've created collars, so that way if a dog gets hurt on a call, all in EMS, a paramedic would have to do is take their phone, scan the QR code, and now all the dog's normal vitals come up. So again, this all stemmed out of an idea here from Portsmouth. So what I wanted to do was just a quick, right, trying to bring you information, but also make this fun, right? So I have a quick video for you to watch. It's only about a minute long. I think it demonstrates what our dogs do. So enjoy. So again, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to come here. I think I may have stayed under the 15 minutes, which means I think I won the pot because everyone was betting against me on that one. But of course, if you have any questions, feel free to, I can answer them for you.
A couple questions. One, I recall when I was doing orientation as a new police commissioner, I don't know if it was ICAC or Portsmouth Canine talking about a dual-purpose dog who could sniff out hidden technology. Do either of our dog, was that ICAC?
That was ICAC, yes.
Okay.
Yep, they just got their second dog, actually, so now they have 2 of them.
It's remarkably cool.
Yes.
Second, when the federal government, for example, some law enforcement agency, the federal government, asks for the assistance of a Portsmouth Canine unit, does any money change hands, or is that just a mutual aid kind of thing?
As far as I understand, that's just a mutual aid thing. The chief and deputy chief have been pretty awesome about allowing us to assist, our surrounding agencies and anybody else who asks. I don't think we've ever said no to anybody.
Thank you. And my only disappointment is that we don't have Frankie here tonight.
I know.
He's
He would certainly
way cuter than you.
He would have certainly sniffed every corner of this room if he was here.
And I think I can speak to the fact that Frankie really impressed all the elementary school children at Little Harbor School that day. But thank you so much for really coming in and giving us the presentation, both for the commission and also for the community.
Of course.
It's, I think few people know in what ways, the Portsmouth Police K-9 program really pioneers, both for training of canine dogs as well as for the safety of canine dogs. And so it's really something our community should be proud of.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming in and giving us all this information.
Thanks very much.
Great.
Now I make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from the July 15th and August 19th Police Commission meetings.
I will second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Next, we're moving on to public comment. I see a few people in the audience tonight. We don't actually have the list, but does anyone care to speak? Come on up, sir.
Hi, I'm David Holt from Somersworth, New Hampshire. I am basically on September 17th, just before 5 p.m., Officer Blaine Johnson approached our peaceful demonstration in Market Square and barked orders to remove our materials. He refused to listen, demanded immediate compliance, and even began handling our property. His actions were not only unjustified, but also rooted in a false interpretation of city rules and based upon his own ideology. The resolution he cited, 2005-9, only prohibits blocking pedestrians or vehicle traffic. We were not doing that, yet Officer Blaine ignored our attempted explanations, just as other officers have in the past. 2 weeks ago, another officer infringed on our free speech using a completely different and equally incorrect reading of the same resolution, which I have here. The double standard is glaring. 5 years ago, fascist white supremacist MAGA supporters, Islamophobes, filled the square with empty chairs and hateful flags, signs, and banners attached to them. They actually blocked pedestrian traffic, which is the only thing that this says that you cannot do. The city only acted to stop this when wealthy residents complained. And this was at this point that they dug up this old resolution. But when those same groups resumed their hateful displays last June, attaching signs and flags to chairs, nothing was done. I reported it to the police, to the mayor and the deputy mayor responded back saying that it was not a police issue, but a code enforcement issue, which I'd also tried to explain to Officer Blaine Johnson. The thing is, this is an issue bigger than any one officer or one town anywhere. Across this country, we've seen police adopting an authoritarian fascist mindset. They are increasingly militarized, accountable for shootings, and aligned with extremist politics. Our own police union here has repeatedly endorsed the convicted felon, fascist, and architect of a coup, of which many of the participants were police. I believe one of them was a chief of police for a town here in New Hampshire. We cannot entrust people who embrace authoritarianism and fascism to protect the public. It doesn't match up with the idea of to serve and protect. Police are supposed to serve all citizens, not enforce personal or political agendas or ideologies. Yet over and over, whether it was Occupy New Hampshire Seacoast, the Seacoast Peace Response, or other groups, our rights have been trampled by officers misrepresenting the law and putting their own ideological beliefs forward in that. One of the other officers, it says that you can't attach signs to city property. That's not true. They said you can't set anything, you can't have anything there unless you're holding it. Not true. This is a code enforcement issue, which was what was actually reported back to me by the deputy mayor. Not true. Well, at least not true according to Officer Blaine. I never really got a real answer on that. The pattern's clear. The law is not the issue. The issue is the power being abused to silence dissent. And that is something we cannot and will not accept. We need to educate our police as to the nature of their job and train them to uphold the law, not to use their positions to push their own ideology, which goes against the very idea of protect and serve. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for public comment this evening? Come on up, sir.
Hello, sorry. My name is Tom Rossi. I'm a resident of Portsmouth, and we've lived in this city for about 10 years, and I just want to commend the police department here. Every interaction that we've had with the police, none of which were adversarial, but just sort of common everyday interactions, whether that be getting help with a car that was stranded on the side of the road or just routine things like that. Answering to some emergency calls from my elderly mom has been very professional, very courteous. I've been an eyewitness to how the police handled some rather contentious activity during Market Square Day, and my observation was that they were quite professional and restrained. So I'd like to compliment them on that, and I'd like to thank you for keeping us safe here in Portsmouth. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move on to new business. First, facilities update. First, there's the discussion of the Blue Ribbon Committee meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Commissioner Scher.
I attended the last Blue Ribbon Committee meeting, and there was continuing discussion, mostly from the architect who the committee has hired, who is doing in the process of doing a needs assessment. When asked when he would be able, after the needs assessment and the creation of some initial plans, when there would be a cost estimate about what is being considered. He said he expects the end of the year, January, maybe as late as February, that they would present several alternatives with cost assessments attached to them. All the focus is on a new police station in some combination with at least a portion of City Hall. That's really what is in discussion now. There's really no consideration anymore of a freestanding police station. I think everybody agrees that it is too expensive. So what's under discussion is what will be under discussion going forward is a number of alternatives of an addition combined with a rehabbing of City Hall. And of course, the $64,000 question, underestimating the amount, is how much, whatever plans are come up with, how much they're going to cost.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments with respect to that? Okay, we'll move on to the dispatch center mold remediation. And Chief or Deputy Chief, do you want to take that away? Describe that.
Yes, we just recently met yesterday. The dispatch center has been the last part of the PD that hasn't been remediated for multiple different reasons, but we started putting a plan together and hopefully hope to start that project. We're shooting for January.
Great. And next on to anything else? Any comments? Okay. That is an area that really hadn't been tackled.
Hasn't touched.
It's good to see it being done. Do we have a sense of the cost of that project?
Not yet. We're not there yet.
Okay.
I think we got to get some contractors in here. The big holdup is because when you do the dispatch center, they got to move to under the spot in our redundant dispatch centers at Station 2, which we just made some upgrades to make sure that it will function, because generally the project may say it's only going to take 3 or 4 weeks to do, and
Substantially longer.
yes, so we're preparing for that and want to make sure that we have all the things in place at Station 2 before we switch over.
Great. Moving next to community priorities, the body-worn cameras are rolled out and are proving to be very valuable. Deputy Chief, do you want to talk a little bit about where we are with those and the use and how the officers are liking them this way?
Yeah, certainly. So, yeah, we just completed our last training session. So all of our officers, with the exception of one who's on a military deployment and our 2 recruits that are in the academy, have body cameras as well as our animal control officer. So the body cameras are out there. They're recording. They're starting to become part of evidence. We're starting to put them through the whole process of how they're used for court, how they're used for a citizen's complaint, how they're used to increase report writing, basically for everything. It was a significant rollout and significant amount of research went into the implementation. I think we did a great job with our initial policy. We have a couple of recommendations and revisions that we're working on right now that we've had them out in the field for quite some time. I think they've been tremendously successful so far in addressing any concerns or issues that come up, particularly with the community, whereas we never really had the opportunity to actually see what happened. We can see that now. So credit to personnel and training and the team that put together the program to implement it seamlessly, and we haven't gotten any pushback from our folks. In fact, quite the opposite. People seem to be very comfortable with them and have been beneficial for us so far.
It's wonderful. Commissioner Scheer?
I was just going to point out more broadly in terms of the community priorities when Chair Coyle and I both started on the Police Commission almost 4 years ago now. The community priorities had just been adopted by the Police Commission, but none of them were in effect. The big issue was going to be how and when and if they were implemented. Today, we now have body cams. We have in the process, by November sometime, we will have a new CAD RMS system, which will be able to collect a lot more data than we've ever collected, and a lot more data than virtually any police department in New Hampshire is collecting. There was a recommendation that the police department investigate hiring a social worker. There is now one on staff. There's the hope to get another one. I just want to compliment the police department in their willingness to act with some haste to implement those priorities that the community itself identified as important to the city, and again, to compliment the department for doing so.
Thank you, Commissioner Scheer. I agree. I was just, again, it is remarkable when I remember creating a spreadsheet of all the different action items, and where we are now is remarkable, from policies and being accessible to the community, all sorts of things. Our transparency and accountability by the police department has been wonderful, and it really shows what's our go live date for the CAD RMS system?
Monday, November 4th.
It's great. So we've been talking about that for a long time, and the delays were none to do with this end, but more to the development of software. And I think with that, we have fine-tuned that so that the data we can collect is very specific to the issues identified by the community priorities action items. And we're in a place to hit the ground running on collecting that data, which we can then use to continue to shape and make improvements within our community. So it's a wonderful thing. Anything else? All right. Moving on, we have just brief discussion about the community dialogue on ICE from the August 19th meeting. And Commissioner, did you have something to share with us?
Yes, I thought that the minutes that were taken, I know there was a little bit of talk about, oh, it's not televised, it hasn't been recorded. It is recorded. And a recording of the meeting is available on the PD's website in the city's YouTube channel. Everything is right there in black and white. I thought it was a great discussion. Everyone was heard, and I think it was a positive outcome. And again, everything is available. It was recorded. You can hear it. You can see it. It's available.
And you can access the minutes. Essentially, it was sort of, we wanted to give an opportunity to the community to engage in a dialogue about ICE, because we had gotten, all received a number of emails or contact from concerned citizens. So we decided to change our typical meeting structure, which only allows for public comment for 5 minutes and not a dialogue, which the community seemed to want. And we sat down there and had a sort of roundtable, if you will, where we got to hear one another's viewpoints. There was an understanding, articulate some of the limitations of the police department. And I agree that it was just a really nice and wonderful and fruitful example of sitting around and just communicating. And there was great listening by all the participants and great input. And so we were really pleased with the outcome. I think the limitation was, and I know there was some concern about the ability to have a video recording. We wanted to make it accessible, and for us to be accessible and to make it accessible to those participating. So it didn't make sense for us, from just a logistics and to facilitate the discussion, for us to sit up here and have that dialogue. It was truly a dialogue. So we ended up sitting down on the floor. As a result, there were limitations on the sort of the video recording opportunities, but there are full notes available. All of the meeting minutes are publicly available. And so if anybody has questions, though, in addition, they can always reach out to the commission.
And I would point out that at the suggestion of one of the members of the community who was at that dialogue, the police commission decided to have published in the Portsmouth Herald a piece that described the role of the police department, and, to be candid about it, the limited role under federal law and under very restrictive and unfortunate legislation passed by the state legislature. The significant limits on the Portsmouth Police Department having any involvement and any interaction with the behavior of ICE when they've come to this community. And I think I've received personally a lot of positive feedback about how useful and educational the Police Commission editorial was in the Portsmouth Herald.
All right, we'll move on and now turn it over to you, Chief.
All right.
Moving right into donations.
You guys made it easy for me tonight, so I just need a motion to accept a donation for $500 from Fed Point for the police canine unit.
I'll make a motion that we accept the donation of $500 from Fed Point for the Portsmouth Police Canine Unit and forward it to the City Council for action.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Okay, the second donation, Texas Roadhouse was nice enough to do a fundraiser to benefit the Police Explorers Program, and at that benefit, there was a check in the amount of $189 from Walmart to the Police Explorers Program. I need a motion to accept the donation.
I'll make a motion to accept the donation of $189 from Walmart for the Portsmouth Police Explorers Program and forward it to the City Council for action.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries.
All right. And at that same fundraiser, another check was received for $100 from Vanessa Smiley of Exeter, New Hampshire, for the Portsmouth Police Explorers Program, and I will need a motion to accept the donation for $100.
I will make a motion that we accept the donation of $100 from Vanessa Smiley for the Portsmouth Police Explorers Program and forward to the City Council for their action.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. All right, moving right into the crime analyst report.
Certainly. So, looking at January 1st, 2025 to August 31st, calls for service, we're at 27,355, which is about a 5% decrease. Total arrests made, very similar. We're at 631 comparatively for the last 3-year average to 635 for this year. DWI arrests, we are at 64, which is up 3.2% from the previous 3-year average. Motor vehicle stops, we're at 1,483, which is a 12% reduction. Reportable motor vehicle crashes, 329 to 303. So we'd like to see a reduction there, so that's almost an 8% reduction. Motor vehicle stops and offenses, 4,880 compared to 5,523. IEAs, which are involuntary emergency admissions, we're down to 37 in custody. Arrests there, again, it's not a criminal charge, but it's a mental health related activity, where we were at 41 for the average of the last 3 years, down 9%. And juvenile matter calls have reduced 121 to 87 for almost a 28% decrease.
A question for the deputy chief. I look at the offense reports, the significant decline in offense reports and significant decline in motor vehicle stops, offenses, and even juvenile matter calls. Any sense of what relatively dramatic decline is about?
With respect to the motor vehicle stops and offenses, that is primarily contributed to staffing and not having the current staffing levels that we have seen over the years, that we don't have the officers on the street that are the numbers above and beyond our minimum manning numbers. So currently, with respect to motor vehicle, we don't have simply as many officers doing that as in years past. It's certainly not an indication that it's a lower priority for us. That hasn't changed. Traffic enforcement related matters consistently are at the top, if not the top priority. Offense reports, those are police reports. That's everything from a criminal mischief to a simple assault to a domestic. Those are the things that are reported to us. It's tough to account why that number is a bit lower than the previous 3-year average, although it's only off by a couple hundred. We may see that number go up in a month. It varies from week to week. We get our weekly statistics from our crime analyst, and sometimes we'll take 42 offense reports. Other weeks we'll take 68. And it's tough to kind of determine why that is. We're always looking for trends. In particular, Casey, our crime analyst, is very good about finding trends or patterns. So that's something that's tough to answer, but something we always look to answer. And then juvenile matter-related calls down 27.9. We've seen a steady reduction in that for probably the last year to a year and a half. Some of those can be attributed to when school's in session, when school's not in session. A lot of our SROs might be dealing with those juvenile-related calls when they're in school. So we might not have it necessarily reflected in our CAD system because it might be something that they deal with just during the school day that's not computerized or notated in a computer. Juvenile matter-related calls overall are bad things, to use an extreme word. So by virtue of the fact that those have reduced is a good thing. There's no disputing the fact that if we're getting less calls about juveniles creating problems or creating or causing crime, to me, that indicates that we're doing a good proactive job in preventing that. So, we like to see that as well.
Thank you.
If I could just add to the offense reports, I think some of that is to do with proactivity and some is just intangibles, but I think also us getting out in the community, messaging about fraud and scams and people not being victimized as much as they maybe have in the past could attribute to some of those numbers being reduced.
Thank you.
If I may, just add a quick plug. We're going to post it on our social media, and we'll advertise it through the schools. But there's been quite an uptick in concern and complaints regarding e-transportation in the city, particularly e-bikes, and not necessarily e-bikes, but the really fast dirt bike-looking ones that everybody sees. Those are technically not e-bikes. So a team of officers here at the PD has done a great job over the last few months collecting information, meeting with external stakeholders and bike shops, and we're doing a informational night for parents and anybody who wants to attend next Thursday at the Portsmouth Public Library at 4 p.m. So that's September 24th at 4 p.m. at the Public Library, and we'll have some more information on our website by the end of the day tomorrow. But we expect to probably have pretty good attendance on that, seeing how we're hearing that all over the city, that there's a lot of concern and issues with primarily these OCEVs, which are out-of-class electric vehicles that look very much like a dirt bike, but can go up to 50, 60 miles an hour being on city streets. So we hope to have a good turnout. So.
I would point out, just building on that, there are some of us at the legislative level who have been discussing state legislation, trying to manage the difficulties a lot of police departments seem to be having with e-bikes, scooters, just the various types of transportation that are new in the last 5 to 10 years, particularly the last 5 years. And I'm hearing at the legislative level from other representatives that it's becoming a big problem, and there's really no legislation that tries to put in place some guidelines so that police departments and members of the community have something to go on.
Yeah, in fact, just last week I had conversations with Lieutenant with the State Police, Office of Highway Safety, DMV, and that was the point of the discussion, was trying to regulate this e-space, but it's such a rapidly evolving space. Legislation can hardly keep up to what they're seeing out there. I mean, bicycles are regulated by New Hampshire RSA as a bicycle, but a lot of these things aren't bicycles. And then, I've seen somebody, riding through town at a high rate of speed on a skateboard, and I realize he's not pushing the skateboard, but he has a throttle in his hand and it's an electric skateboard. Or a uniball, which looks like a balance ball, but it's electrically powered. So for the enforcement piece of it, we have to have the ability to say, what is that? And right now, everything changes so fast and there's new things being introduced all the time. It's tough to stay on top of it.
And that's the difficulty at the legislative level. We don't want to put in place things that'll be kind of outdated within a year.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It's a perfect transition to the monthly traffic stats.
Oh. So for the, looks like 2 months of stats here. For the month of July, we had 763 motor vehicle stops, 23 summonses, 54 reportable crashes. And in August, we had 522 motor vehicle stops, 23 summonses, and 41 motor vehicle crashes. Even just this morning, we had our staff meeting and our crime analyst reported out the data, but the last 2 weeks, last week we were kind of back on track a little bit, but the previous 2 weeks, there were 4 reportable crashes in the city. And reportable, for anybody that's not familiar, means that cumulative damage is likely more than $1,000 and a state crash report is required. So there were 4 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and then 2 weeks ago there was 2. So to have 2 reportable crashes in the city over a 7-day period is, that's almost 0, which is impossible. But unfortunately, that ticked back up a little bit this past week, but
I apologize to the chief, but it's a deputy chief, but I don't have any questions about the traffic study.
All right, so we'll move quickly to Karen with our financial report, or Commissioner Shore comes up with a question.
In your packet, you have the FY25 year-end financial report. The city auditors haven't audited that yet, but I'm pretty sure the number will remain the same. We ended the fiscal year expending 97.76% of what we were budgeted for. We're returning $280,904. That's mainly due to vacancies. But as we stated during our FY26 budget hearing, although we have vacancies, it's not a dollar-for-dollar return to the city for those vacancies. And for example, we had $786,000 in salary savings, but to backfill all those vacancies, it cost us $491,186 to backfill all those vacancies. So the amount we're returning is approximately the difference between that. We also had some unexpected expenses in FY25, and we're starting to track that now. So we'll give you a list of the things that we didn't budget for, but still had to cover somehow, and we're also tracking that in FY26, this fiscal year. Also in your packet is the FY26 year-to-date financial report. We're currently 15.38% through the fiscal year, and we're currently tracking at 14.5%, approximately 1% below. And as you heard tonight, we're in the process of starting the FY27 budget. First up is the CIP submission, which includes our projects, but also our rolling stock and our IT rolling stock. So we'll be getting those in within the week. The strategic plan, as stated last meeting, the draft was out. Chief and I still have to meet on one last piece. Fortunately, he was out, I was out, so we'll get that through on the next meeting. And then on the grants, we're currently awaiting the new federal ICAC grant application. We haven't heard what's going on with that yet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we have some in our packet, some patrol division report, court office report. Any other business? Hearing none, our next regular meeting is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, but always check the municipal calendar.
We're probably going to have to reschedule that because we're going to be away at training.
Okay, well, then definitely check the calendar, probably. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.